Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to Peak Human. I just got off a call with my dear friend, Tara Couture. Third time she's been on the podcast. What an amazing woman. Everyone loves her. You're going to love this episode. She's a true legend. She's up in Canada on her own farmstead. She's living the life that some people, at least, wish they could live, growing her own food, has an amazing stead of a husband, which she goes into detail about, and his great health, her great health, the food they eat, how they live their life, their daughters, and even their granddaughters living this sapien lifestyle, strong and healthy. It's incredible. I love to hear from Tara. I love her food. I got to eat with her, which is some people's life dream. Actually, multiple people have reached out to me and says that's their life dream is to eat a meal with Tara or that she's prepared. So this is a good one. We talk about all things nutrition. We talk about lifestyle factors. We talk about nutrient density, of course. We talk about hormones, actually, for men and women, and how to optimize these into old age or into even middle age. We talk about simple ways to make this your diet and lifestyle. You don't have to go get a farmstead like her. You can do this in the city, and we give a lot of great actionable stuff on how to start. So enjoy this one. Support nose to tail. I don't want to have advertisers. So I hope people are listening to this and not skipping over this part and finding value in my little messages to open up the show. But nose to tail is how this is supported. And it's my company. It's small. It's boutique. We do quality products and we love when people support us. The oyster pills are our new thing that everyone wants. They're back in stock, and men and women can take these and they help you optimize your hormones, optimize your immune system too, with all that zinc. I raised my testosterone, not that I usually even check it. I just happened to get a blood lab and like, oh, wow, this is amazing. This is the only thing I changed was taking oyster pills. All of a sudden, I have a high testosterone, which shows because I can easily maintain muscle and have a great life, great energy, all these things at 42. And I think it's because of my diet and my lifestyle and having the nutritional support of oysters. So get that, the biltong, the body care products. We have deodorant made from beef tallow. We have all the things made from beef tallow without weird ingredients. So check those out, nosetotale.org. Oysters back in stock, nosetotale.org. And please enjoy this one with my dear friend, Tara Couture. Hello, Tara. We're back. Number 3, Tara Couture. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, Brian. It's so good to see you.
Absolutely. People who are listeners of Peak Human should know Tara. She was one of my early guests, my favorite guest, one of my favorites in the world. Oh man, I post about meal we had that you made for me on my birthday that we happened to be there filming with you up in Canada. Just tell us a little bit about that.
Well, you tell us. I don't even remember what we had, but I remember it was such a pleasure to feed you because you were so appreciative.
We had everything. There was
Yeah.
like 30 things. You brought out all your jars of ferments and roulettes and pâtés and oh, it was incredible.
Yeah, it was a good dinner. It's always good to have an appreciative eater at my table. It's so much fun to have someone enjoying the food that you prepared and that, came from our place. And yeah, it was so fun to have you guys.
Well, that's why I appreciate it so much because it's deep nutrition. It was the most nutrient dense foods grown by you, raised by you, picked by you, slowly prepared. I interviewed Stephen Kavanaugh that introduced me to the idea of slow food, the slow food movement instead of the fast food. And Tara is an expert in slow food. She's been doing this for over 30 years, eating this way. And she wrote a book. So we're going to talk about her book today. She's a licensed nutritionist. What do you call it? A nutrition
A
consultant
registered
up in
nutritionist. Yep.
Canada.
Yep.
And so she has the credentials. She lives it. She has a homestead that she lives on called Slow Down Farmstead. And yes, tell us more about your background and all the good stuff.
Yeah, I'm a grandma now, and I have two daughters. And when I was growing up, My mom raised us, she was sort of a hippie and raised us, eating carrot, wheat germ cookies and that sort of thing. We never had cereal in our house, but I did have chronic, strep and different illnesses. So I was on a lot of antibiotics when I was growing up. And then as a teenager, I just sort of went wayward and found the glory of cinnamon buns and freezies and Slurpees from 7-Eleven and just started eating all the crappy stuff. And then I had our first daughter in my early 20s, and from there, as soon as I found I was pregnant, actually, I let go of all that food and just started returning back to what I thought was healthy food at the time. This was like the early 90s, so, what was healthy was sort of fruit and beans and brown rice and stuff that I don't necessarily eat anymore, but, no processed foods and stuff, and so it's been an evolution over the years since that time. We were getting eggs from farmers even back then, getting raw milk even back then, and so it's been decades now that, and about I think it's about 16 or 17 years ago, we bought our first farm, and at the time, we were selling grass-fed beef and heritage organic pork, and then about 8 years ago, we downsized to the homestead that we're on now, and, my husband and I are empty nesters, and we raise all of our own food. This time of year, we're growing and preserving and getting ready to fill up everything we have, our root cellar and our freezers, and that's what we live off for the year. We harvest all our own meat, our cows, everything. So it's been a long time. It's been decades and different iterations of how we eat, but always eating local food, unprocessed foods, animal based foods, a lot of milk and butter and like fermented foods, preserved foods. And yeah, and now our daughters that are adults, they still eat that way. And our granddaughter eats that way, which is really rewarding to see just what a bundle of vibrant health that little one is. And that, I hear so many stories from parents whose children, they really struggle with seeing their grandchildren eating really processed foods and stuff. So I feel really grateful that that messaging was important enough to our daughters for them to carry that on and that they're both really healthy. So yeah, that's where we're at now.
Yeah, it's so good to hear because I know so many parents that have problems with their kids and they follow the mainstream kind of diet stuff and which means a lot of processed food just whatever they'll eat. Like, oh, that my kids will only eat goldfish and mac and cheese and chicken nuggets. That's all they'll eat. They eat three things. And I'm like, well, you made them eat that. I mean, now once they got that food, they learned about these foods exist, and then they chose to not eat others. But that doesn't have to happen, right?
It doesn't have to happen, but it can't be a verbal teaching. It has to be modeled, I think. And, I don't know how a kid eats goldfish if there's no goldfish in the house. Like, I don't know how that happens. Or if, you've sort of laid out for the grandparents that this isn't the way that we eat. And so here is how we eat and bringing your own food and letting them know, this is what we're doing. Here's why it's important to us and setting down those boundaries. And, I even when our kids I remember our youngest was a hockey player, and I remember after hockey, some parents got in their heads that kids needed chocolate bars like Snickers or Mars bars after a hockey game, and then that turned into like a halftime half chocolate bar and a Gatorade. Like, it was just this constant fueling of these foods, and we didn't eat that. And so I brought what we did eat, and I put something together, whatever it was, and that's what my kid ate. And it was always like that. Like, that was just the way it is because and our kids, it wasn't like they started having a meltdown because they didn't get the Mars bar. The Mars bar was a foreign entity to them because it wasn't part of how we ate or why we ate. And I was giving them something that was just as delicious. And so that was sort of that. So I think that modeling and really communicating with your kids is really important. Like, it's not like a drilling down of we don't eat those because of blah, 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 but letting them know as it's age appropriate. My kids came with me to the farm to go get our raw milk. Like when we went and did our pickup, they came with me. They knew why we got raw milk and we didn't drink that other milk. And it was just part of the our family dynamic. It was part of the thing that our family valued. And so it was just a natural part of our conversation in the way that we sort of like moved through the world. And it was very natural. There was nothing forced about it. That was what we ate, how we ate it. There was no secret stash of like Doritos anywhere because my husband and I weren't eating that. And
Mhm.
I think that's where people's problems come in is we're trying to say one thing and then we're sneaking this other stuff as if it's some treasured precious food when it's really like it's poison. Like how do you give the message that these things are hard for your body and then you consume them or they're in the house? It's not going to work. That doesn't work. It has to be modeled.
Well, yeah, you don't wanna create fear around food or make it a big thing, and that kinda happened with me growing up, is anything that was not allowed then became something that I would rebel against when I went to college, or you
Hmm.
rebel against when you go to your friend's house,
Hmm.
right? Because there's so much energy around it, but it sounds like the key is for people listening out there's a lot of people struggle with this, having families, is don't make it such a forbidden thing and that everyone wants it, but you can't have it. It's more education around why you don't want this or never getting the child accustomed to these flavors in the first place. And then they just know, yes, these foods exist, but they're not for me. I don't think they're particularly even tasty because they're so like fake tasting, maybe.
Mhm. There's a lot that's a wide there's a lot of nuance in what you just said though, because some people will say that and hear it as a, okay, well then, when they ask for the Mars bar, I'm gonna let them have a Mars bar because there should be no off-limit foods. And I think you're creating something there. You're gonna start something that's gonna be hard to reel back. And then the other extreme of that is like, absolutely not. Like you're going here and you're not having anything and you're going to go to the birthday party and you're going to have like absolutely nothing and that causes issues as well. What I will say from my experience and actually from even my experience having been raised how I was from my mom is there was a period with all our kids when, in their teen years where they had this rebellion where they would go to their friends and eat, whatever, the pizza, the chips, the whatever. I never said anything about it, but they immediately could recognize something was off in their bodies. And I think that giving our kids that chance to grow up knowing what it feels like to be in a clear mind, a strong body, have vibrant energy, when the inevitable time comes where they, stretch their wings and they go off and do their own thing, can quickly recognize, oh, this stuff I feel off. Like this, I feel sore. I feel my brain is foggy or I feel depressed. And they recognize it as the food. I think what's happening right now is so many kids are growing up, with this low grade depression, with these like emotional problems, with these mental problems, and no one recognizes as food. It's almost like insulting to suggest, fundamentally, if your nutrition is not there, the body struggles in a myriad of ways. And so we're not giving our kids that foundation of even knowing what it feels like to be in a really good, strong body. And so I think that when they're younger and you do have more control over them and what comes in and out, you have to put forward that effort to make sure that they do recognize that, they do know that, because inevitably, like you said, they're going to go out into the world and they're going to do their thing. But in my experience and in the experience of our daughters, they all came back to eating nourishing foods. When they were in college or whatever and they were struggling with money, they were still using their, collecting their quarters to buy nourishing food. And even, to this day, they don't have a lot of money, but the food is a big priority for them because without it, fundamentally, everything else starts, breaking down. So I think that's really important point to get across to young parents.
Definitely. Just don't make it, I just use the word energy, have energy around it. So much like sort of negative energy around
Mhm.
these foods. Let them know that, but I'm not saying, yeah, oh, just let them have it whenever
Yeah.
they want. But if you start them early, if you don't have goldfish in the house, then they're never gonna only eat goldfish. So it's
Right.
like they're hungry, they're gonna eat. If you only have real foods around from a very early age, they can't develop a palate to only eat chicken nuggets and goldfish, right?
Yeah,
Is
absolutely.
that how you do it? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that palate development, like you said, is so important. Like that exposure to nuanced foods, different flavors, like the richness and the umami of like natural foods is so important when they're young. It's so important to give them a variety of things to allow them to enjoy the flavors and the textures of real food. Like those foods can never compete with that excitatory response of like these artificial flavors that like set your brain on fire, they're and so in order for them to be able to associate like these flavors, and the body starts to recognize that these flavors are what brings nourishment is yeah, it's really important. And I think that right from the beginning when kids start food, being able to expose them to those flavors. Like my granddaughter, you show her pate and she almost like a little devil. Like she just,
Mhm.
she's
Mhm.
like, "Glah, give me the pate." Like, and I mean, that makes sense, because it's full of nourishment and it's delicious. And that she reacts that way is that, such a clear example of a brain and her senses associating with this food that it's something of high value. And that's what it should be. The foods that are high value should be these nourishing foods. It shouldn't be these empty foods, like you said, like the goldfish.
Yeah. That's what I've noticed. I was gonna bring up pate, and I've seen so many videos of, 1-year-olds just going nuts on pate, or
Yeah.
people I know that eat the correct way. They love liver. My old business partner and still great friend, Dr. Gary, loves liver. He grew up eating it. His family was, from different parts of the world that loved it. I just
Hmm.
met a girl last night. She I was giving out my nose to tail liver sticks. It's just like some beef with liver, without preservatives and the whole thing.
Yeah.
And she was loving it. And she said, "Oh, yeah, I grew up in Japan. My family moved to Japan. And this was just something that we ate. We just ate interesting foods." And she developed, her body had this intuition to know that this is rewarding for her.
Yeah. I think I tell people that often because so many people have asked me, what do you do when you don't like liver? And to be very frank, I did not like liver at all. I had always eaten it like a little hunk of shoe leather that showed up on my plate, and I had to choke it down with a bunch of ketchup on it. But I would say that, like, in my adult years that consuming liver consistently, it's almost like I was training my body to figure out that this stuff that I'm eating has the nutrients that my body needs, and it took a while of just consistently eating it, maybe once or twice a week. But now if I go without it for too long, I'm just like, something's weird, something's off, and I'll be like, "Oh, no, I didn't eat liver for, like, 2 weeks." And I'll have a little bit of liver and it's like exactly what I need. So I think that we can, even as adults, like train our palates again to recognize these things that are nourishing for our bodies.
Yeah, I'm getting there. I mean, I like it. I love my liver sticks. Like, they
Yeah.
don't taste bad to me anymore at all. So
Yeah.
Tara's a hero to many. If you don't know, she writes at the Slowdown Farmstead. If you just search that, you can find her Substack. She posted for many years more consistently on Instagram under Slowdown Farmstead. It's still there. And just really inspiring people to get back to their nature, get back to being a human. It's really aligned with my whole sapien thing. This is just what we need to do to live healthy, to reverse a lot of problems in society, even.
I think people can really get lost in the weeds. And I'm not talking about like if you're all dialed in and you want to, tweak things to bring things to a different level, because the average person is just coming and looking to find a way to be healthier. Maybe they feel crappy and maybe, they recognize that they've sort of just fallen into this rut that they learned of how to eat. And so I think that, like, that's why I love your messaging, Brian, because you have, like, consistently talked about getting rid of processed foods, eating real whole foods, and like just that one thing, it almost seems like too simple because people are like, oh, yeah, but how? Like, should I eat butter or coconut oil? Or, how much meat should I eat? And I think instead of getting into, we get this like the whole paralysis by analysis type shtick, where instead of like putting your focus on that, like just what are you eating right now? Like when I was a nutrition consultant, my big dream was to just go into people's houses and open their fridge and cupboards and just take things out one by one and be like, okay, this, and to go through these things
Right.
because I just think we could do so much more by seeing what people have in their fridges and kitchens rather than spending hours on like figuring out what supplement they need or all these other really high level detailed parts of the equation when just looking at getting foods that have ingredient labels, out off of your shelves as a staple. And if you want to augment what you're eating with like really good choices, that's one thing. But I think people need to get down to the basics again. You need to learn how to cook, my friends. You have to know how to cook. And that does not have to be confusing. It doesn't have to be a French work of art. It's just basic braising and like, these techniques that allow you mentioned earlier slow food. And I have this saying that I use often where I say that I eat fast food from slow food. I put all of my preparation in beforehand. So, like, even this morning before we got on this call, I put a blade roast, I browned it up in a cast iron pot with some ghee and put some salt and pepper on it. And then I built around a whole bunch of apple butter that I had preserved last year. I just poured it on and I took some onions and I chopped them up and threw them in because I was in a rush and took the greens of the onions and some fresh herbs and laid it all over top. And then I had some bone broth that I had made, in bulk many months ago and just poured that in. And, in a couple hours, I'm going to have a really wonderful, nourishing meal. I'm going to eat it with some cucumbers from my garden. Like, and some raw milk. Like it's so quick and it's that fast food from slow food because I had prepared things in bulk beforehand. And this is within everyone's capacity from the day to day. Like I don't have time to make bone broth today. I don't know if you do, maybe you do, but when I do, I'm going to make a pot big enough that I can freeze 10 or 12 jars of it. And so I just think that this idea around exactly all these little details and nuance would be better we would be better served if we use that time and energy to get cooking fundamentals down, to find out where in our local areas we can access these nourishing foods. Like put your time and energy into that and let all this silliness go. And then once you get to that point, fine, you've got it all figured out and you want to go and like tweak things so that you can run your 5K faster or whatever it is, fine. That's awesome. But I don't think that's where the vast majority of people are.
The vast majority of people, yes, are just trying to get by with life and they have bills and they have jobs and they have
Yeah.
families. And some people think that it's very hard or they need to make some elaborate meal each time. And
Yeah.
I know, and again, if you want to make some elaborate meal and that's your thing, I know people that have a great time with their partner creating elaborate meals, right? And doing all the things, and that's their source of fun and joy. But it doesn't have to be like that. I think there's a perception that it's hard to cook a steak, or I'm like, well, no, it's not hard. It's weird. Some people don't even know how to cook a steak. I'm like, you just throw it on the cast iron, and then I mean, it's it's not that hard. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like I got a hold of like a pork tenderloin. I'm like, oh, do I know how to cook this? I'm like, of course, I don't need to look this up. I'm just gonna use basic principles of let's get a little sear on it and then let's slow cook it. Right. And if you have
Exactly.
these basic foundational principles, you're not gonna screw it up because any cut of meat can be good if you just get some heat on it and then maybe slow cook it for a little longer.
Exactly. It's exactly what you said. Like, just have this fun and learn how to braise. Honestly, learn how to braise, and you can make any tough cut of meat into the most luxurious, decadent meal you've ever had. Throw a couple little veggies or fruit or whatever you want on the side, doesn't matter. But just learn that one thing, if nothing else. Don't go on the internet today. Don't scroll. Just go figure out how to braise a roast, and you've got yourself covered for everything from like shanks to like, tough cuffs of roast to osso buco to, like you said, your pork, like anything you can use. And it's fundamentally incredibly diverse because depending on what spices you use, what herbs you use, like I do a lot of preserving just because I mean we're growing all of our own food. And so at this time of year, I'm really, really busy. And like yesterday I made a plum sauce and it's like quite like it's spicy. It's more savory than it is, but it's just got a bit of sweetness from the plums. And I'm not a big like eating jam on bread kind of person, although I do like that sometimes on a good piece of sourdough. But my preserves, I'm just like opening them and pouring them over top of a roast and braising it with bone broth. And people eat it and they're like, what is in here? And I'm like, it's just because you've added that depth of flavor. And all it was me taking the lid off a dart. So there's just so many different things that we can do that don't consume our lives entirely, but that, really make our meals different when fundamentally, I think almost every meal I eat is almost the same. It's just got different spices, a different technique of cooking it, and it keeps it fresh. And I mean, I enjoy everything I eat.
Mhm.
Food is pleasure. It's nourishing me, but it's also very pleasurable, and that's important to us too.
I'm right there with you. I love absolutely every bite of food. That's a
Mm,
probably a Mark Sisson quote too. That's been his message too. My message: you should love every single bite of food you eat, but it's just different from what people think. It's not,
yeah,
oh, I'm eating this Doritos with like 100 flavors on it. But I like that you said the jar too. So the jar, I have a friend that calls it the jar diet, and he just gets out a piece of meat and then has jars in his fridge
yeah,
and just put stuff on the side and we're done. And that's pretty much what I do. We joke around about it because what we do. And so Tara's version is the best way you can do it. She's raising her own animals, doing absolutely everything from scratch, and it's incredible. But not everyone has to do that too. We got to
mm,
get back to reality with people's situation and live in the city. So I want to hear your version. My version would be what I do, which I just have store bought sauerkraut that's fresh, that's not like in a jar that's like heated and sitting on a shelf for a million years. I
yeah,
have fresh pickles that I can get the same way. They come cold, they're fresh. I have even we used to sell at Nose to Tail stacks of frozen patties. So they were from my regenerative people out in Lubbock, quality beef, but we had the processor make them into patties and put the little paper in between them and you buy them frozen. So you can have those in your freezer. I'm sure other people are doing them because we stopped doing that at Nose to Tail. You can grab a frozen patty or two, throw them in a pan and heat them up, and then just get out some jars of things and you're done. And it can be
yeah,
different every time. Or like, okay, well, I'll add 4 eggs on this one. Or oh, now I have more of this. Or someone gave me some kimchi. My Korean friend gave me some kimchi. Okay, now it's completely different. It tastes amazing, but I didn't do anything. I don't even cook. I just heat things up and scoop things out and I'm done. So my
yeah.
city slicker version is that. I mean, what do you think? Anyone can do this.
Oh, I love that. And you're making me think like that is exactly how my husband Troy, who you know, and I eat. So when we go traveling, so our daughter lives in Virginia, and so we've been going back and forth a lot, probably every couple months since our granddaughter was born. Well, even before that, just to visit her. And one of the places, so I'm just going to say this because I think it's important because it speaks to it's yes, us traveling, but I think that if I lived in a city, this is exactly what you just said is how we would handle things as well. Because we drive through Pennsylvania and there's a Amish farm store there that has like organic, it's all organic stuff. They have raw milk, they have ferments, they have water kefir, they have all types of meat, they have jerky. And so you can't bring food across the border. And so we'll stop at this farm store in Pennsylvania with our big Yeti cooler and we stuff it full of like all these different types of meats. They even have organic bone broth, so in glass jars. So we'll buy bone broth, we'll buy the milk, we'll buy all these things and the ferments, and that's how we eat, some raw cheese. And so the whole time we're there, we have our cast iron pan wherever we're staying, and we cook up like in the morning, we'll have like whatever we're having with some eggs, some meat, some ferments, maybe a glass of raw milk. And that's how we eat the whole time we're there. And if I lived in a city, that's how I'd eat. And I think this is so crazy easy. Like it's so easy and delicious. It's completely doable. I mean, here it's a whole different story because I'm making all that bone broth and I'm making all those ferments and I'm making it, but that's the way that we've chosen to live. And it's what I want to do with my time. I want to grow and raise my own food, but that doesn't mean that it's inaccessible if you don't live in the country raising and doing all your food. It is totally accessible and doable and quite easy, just like you said, how you approach it. And so, yeah, I love that. I mean, I think that it's it's a family or it's someone else that's making it for you, but to be able to have access to those foods and to be able to approach it that way, it leaves a lot of the excuses for why someone can't do that. When especially in the United States, I have to say, like you guys have access to raw milk and a wide variety of foods. It's a bit tougher in our country here in Canada for people to get it, but it's still doable. I mean, it's absolutely still doable if that's important to someone.
Yeah. And it just reminded me of RFK. I just saw a video. I posted a video about him, and these news people asked him what his diet was. And they kind of just said what you said. He said just a bunch of meat, some yogurts and stuff, and some ferments. And
Mm,
it's amazing how easy it is. And we were talking about carbs actually before because I've been on my journey, and if people, I always tell people to go back and listen to my old episodes. When I started the podcast 7 years ago, I was pretty low carb. And I think that was really good for helping me come out of my standard American diet and metabolic problems I was having. And, I was a bit overweight and all these things. And then I added carbs back in the last 4 or 5 years. And it's been really helpful for me, I think. And I found a way to do it. And so one thing I do is I have like a non-fortified organic white rice. And I make that
mhm.
with bone broth. And then
Yeah.
I actually put a little seasoning in it. And whenever people eat it, they go nuts. Like, this is the best rice I've ever
Yeah.
had. So where are you with carb? Because you've had the Lyme disease and you've had some things. How's it going?
Well, I guess about it, yeah, because I was doing full carnivore, which was really helpful for the Lyme disease stuff. That really helped me. And I had been eating low carb for quite a while before that, like no grains and stuff like that. And in the last year, we've been reintroducing carbs, and I'm still figuring out for me, like which ones I do well with and which ones aren't the greatest. I've sort of been a one step forward, two steps back kind of thing with my husband. He's just a beast. And, he's like in his 50s and he's actually outside training
Mhm.
right now for this competition of against a bunch of 20-year-old men. But he has really loved adding carbs back in. And like for the carbs, it's for us, it's the same. I do like organic white rice and bone broth as well. And, seasonal fruit. We have tons of fruit right now. So there's, we're having that and milk. And I make homemade ice cream, which he just devours and stuff. And he is feeling fantastic. It's really been good for him. So, and me, I'm still going back and forth. But the thing that I have noticed that has been really positive and has made me more committed to not returning to low carb is just I have a lot more energy and my mood is just a lot brighter. I think I was kind of getting into this just low grade sort of not melancholy, but maybe a dullness from being low carb and then having the demands that we have, the physical demands. I wasn't quite meeting what I needed to meet energetically. So yeah, I'm still figuring it out. It's good. And yeah, my husband's a big motivator because when I see how well he's performing now, it's good. So
Mhm. That's great. Yeah, I'm
yeah.
sleeping better, I've noticed with the
Mhm.
carbs, especially with the rice. There's something about it that just, like, allows me to sleep better, and then I don't have it, and then I was waking up in the middle of the night. You
Oh,
know,
that's
I
important.
if I don't have some s yeah. So, tell us more about the book because this is one of the first interviews I've done without reading the book first, but I couldn't get a hold of it in time. It's coming out September 2nd, and you've been writing for years, and it sounds kind of just like a culmination of your thoughts. So tell us what it's called and more about it.
Yeah, the book is called Radiance of the Ordinary. And I think the title kind of sums up what the book is about. It's just sort of finding those ordinary, mundane things in your life and really appreciating the extraordinary gift of our time here of life. And it's sort of, a focus on the dichotomies of life, life and death and work and pleasure. And a lot of these things that I think in 2025 were sort of sold this bill of goods about around, everything should be pleasurable and it should all just be fun and good vibes and stuff. And what I've learned in my life is that it's all of those beautiful things and the pleasure and the rewards of life come through hard work and they come through struggle. And I think that our avoidance of death, we have a very pervasive avoidance of death. No one wants to talk about it. People are afraid to die. And I was too at one time in my life. That sort of controls us and it makes us because we like to think we're immortal and we'll just this gig just keeps on going, because we won't face the fact that we're going to die. We lose the preciousness of life. And so I write about that too. And, it sort of touches on everything because I've learned so much just living the way that we've lived with my marriage. We have a long enduring marriage and we're still madly in love with each other. So I talk about that too. I write about grief. Our youngest daughter died 4 years ago. And so I write about that and also what I found living through that grief that has brought incredible meaning to our lives. So, it's a big culmination of everything I've ever written about on my Substack. And I hope that it's meaningful. I hope that it's a little drop of an antidote to what we're told, the stuff and the accumulation of stuff and materialism and all these things, the scrolling that will make us happy is, that if that doesn't make you happy, it's not because you're broken or flawed. It's because we're living in a human zoo and it's important to find the things that we're actually meant to design to be a part of. So yeah, I think that about sums it up.
Ah, that's great. So yeah, people, if you don't know Tara, one of the best writers out there, incredible writing. I've noticed that for many years. In the beginning, I was first found out about her incredible plates of food that she used to post on Instagram way back in the day. I feel like I was one of the first people to discover this amazing account, Slow Down Farmstead, and it's grown since then. And go to slowdownfarmstead.com and just read some of her work, and I think you'll be very inspired and just delighted by your writing style. It's so poetic and yeah. Who inspires you? I know Charles Eisenstein inspires you. Yeah, where how did you start writing and what inspires you?
Well, I took a writing program through a university in BC a long time ago, and so I was writing even as a kid. I used to write these silly little stories and stuff. So it's just, I raised 3 kids and I homeschooled our last, and my whole life was sort of devoted to that. And my husband was 25 years in the military. So, I did my nutrition stuff, and I just played around with writing sometimes. And it's just now at this point in my life that I'm able to actually focus on writing again. So, but yeah, I don't know. I love Charles Eisenstein, and I'm still determined to one day find him somewhere. But I just think that is just the stuff that I try to be tied into, and then try and convey what I'm seeing into onto paper as best I can, because I don't think it's about me. It's just gifts that I've been given, and I try and relay that through my writing, and hopefully that's what I've done. But thank you for those nice words
Well,
too,
I can't
Brian.
wait to get it. Oh, absolutely. People will love it. I guarantee you. I just haven't read it yet. I just know because I've read your work online that I know that it's going to be incredible. And so I really can recommend this book without even reading it. But I will certainly look forward to a copy. What we were talking about menopause before,
Yeah.
and I don't know if you touch on this in the book at all about more of your personal life, but you told me it didn't affect you. You just were just like, okay, I'm good. And
Yeah.
it seems to affect so many people so terribly. And I think it's because of your diet and your lifestyle and just being so grounded with being human in all these ways. So tell us more.
Yeah, I was saying to Brian earlier that I'm in my mid 50s now, and my period stopped, and so I was like, "Oh, I guess what? Where?" Like, I kept thinking, "When's menopause coming?" And nothing was really happening. And you see, oh my goodness, I mean, I think I posted something a few weeks ago about the menopause industry, and like it had this growth chart, and it was just like going off the charts of, there's like pharmaceutical companies getting involved, nutraceutical companies getting involved, there's a gazillion influencers, and maybe if you're in your 40s, or you're dealing with perimenopause and you feel awful. I mean, I have empathy for people in that situation, and maybe you do need to get hormone. I don't know, like maybe at that point, if you've got to that point and things are going off the rails, then for sure you probably need some help from some people. But maybe this is a story for younger women, and just that, I don't think I've had perfect health at all. I Like you said, I had Lyme disease, chronic Lyme disease, and I was quite sick with that. But what I have done consistently, I guess, if I've done anything right in my adult years, is eating real foods, unprocessed foods. And throughout the time, that's changed. Like we just said, like I was carnivore for a while, and I've eaten low carb, I'm eating carbs. But what I have done consistently is always eaten, really nourishing food and unprocessed foods. I don't eat fast foods. I don't eat at restaurants, like maybe once a year, and I'll order like oysters or something. Like I just don't participate in those types of foods, because where I live, there is no good restaurants. It would be different if there was something great, but there isn't. But and so I I just feel like now, having gone through menopause and having witnessed in my personal life women that really struggled with menopause. I mean, I thought they at times maybe they needed some extra help because it was miserable, and I think I was a little scared of how I would be to my family and my husband. But I don't know, I feel good. I mean, I think that maybe there's a lot of the stuff that we're seeing now with this big explosion of perimenopause, menopause coaches, medications, bioidentical hormones. Maybe a lot of that has to do with the fact that for the decades before women reach that, they just have undernourished their bodies, either, calorically, with nutrients. Maybe what we're seeing is like, that as soon as the body starts to struggle or things start to shift and change, that because there's a weak foundation, that we're seeing what we're normalizing is actually quite abnormal. It's just common, maybe not normal, but common. And so I think that I definitely, would recommend to any young women, not as just not for the only reason, but just saying it's just maybe that's another benefit of having eaten this way for so long, and that maybe that's maybe that's something to actually, if not look forward to not fear, I guess. If you've, made the decision
Mhm.
to have this lifestyle, to be outside, to be in the sun, to move your body, to eat these unprocessed foods, it can be maybe as simple as that. And it's not a life sentence that all women are going to need to go on these drugs and are going to go into this horrendous period in their lives.
I agree, and it could be the same for men too. So
Mm.
for men and women, I don't wanna, yeah, make this only about women if there's a lot of men listening. It's about hormones, right? This is a story about hormones, and for the men's side, so many guys are on TRT these days. I
Yeah.
post a picture of myself. I'm not especially big or strong. I'm just like a normal human. You've seen me, but people think I'm on TRT. They have all these things. I'm like, no, I just eat correctly, do the things you talked about, and my hormones work properly. And well, actually, I eat oysters too. I'm glad you mentioned oysters. I started selling oyster pills at nose to tail because I believe in them so much. And I met a guy in
Yeah,
Ireland that I mentioned, Steven, who does it, and I take the pills. It's just easy, right? It's like I can't go to the store every 2 days and buy oysters.
yeah.
And my testosterone almost doubled. And
Wow.
it's amazing. I have top 1% testosterone. It's like, 20-year-olds have the same as me. And it's just because I'm eating proper nutrition and doing proper things to live like a human. And so that's the story. I mean, I like that you're not being so certain about things like this is exactly why this is
Yeah.
happening for me and I did so well. But I think it definitely is why it happened for you. And
Mm,
that it's not an accident. And people I know who nourish their bodies properly don't have hormone problems. They don't need the drugs. They don't have ADHD or depression. They don't have so many things. And everyone's just like, oh, well, they're just lucky. Well, this is not luck. If every single person I know is doing way better, who's doing things properly, and then everyone I know who's not doing things properly have all the problems. It's very
yeah.
clear.
It's so true, and I'm so glad you brought up the men as well, because you're absolutely right. Like, I know my husband as an example. So when I met him, he was, I think, 175, 180 pounds. I mean, we've been married for over 25 years now, so this is a long time ago, but he's in his 50s and he's 220 pounds. He's continued to put on muscle, like a lot of muscle. And I've never seen the guy without an 8-pack. Like he's lean. He's gotten thicker as he's aged. We call it old man body, but like fit old man body, you just kind of fill out, but still lean. And like he does like competitions every year, adventure races every year. Like he sprints, he lifts weights, he's got ample energy, and he is healthier than when I first met him. And he was an infantry officer back then. So he was grinding, like just grinding himself. But I think that this whole sort of, the idea that, well, first of all, our bodies do change as we age. Like my body's changed for sure, but it's not like, it doesn't have to be this like story of like this, our hormones. I'm sure my hormones have changed as well. And I'm comfortable with them, how they're changing, because I believe that our creator figured this out before we were here. And maybe there's a reason that my hormones are supposed to be where they are. And if I feel good, what does it matter? Like, what does it matter? And like for him, like his testosterone is great, but he's like, I don't even care what my testosterone is. I'm putting on muscle, I'm performing, I feel great. Like, so I think that the rewards are so much bigger and more profound than just like what we see on like social media, like with the guy with his shirt off, eating off the cutting board. There's really the rewards and how you feel and interact with one another, like with your relationships. Like, we have like such a calm, drama free relationship. We're just both happy people and both really enjoy each other. And that, I know it sounds maybe like a reach, but for me, without the foundation of nutrition, nothing else exists. Like, I'm not even myself. I can't even be who I am. I'm anxious, or I'm like, I don't have the energy to go and do the things I want to do. Like, it's so many people that are struggling with depression and feeling lousy and all these different problems that are rampant in our society. And when you want to talk to them about food, you'll often get this kind of like, oh, it's not all about food. And it's like, no, it's not. But foundationally, without it, you're screwed in this society, because the food that is available, if you're not focusing on accessing real food, is not food at all, and you can't build a solid mind and body on that.
It's so true. And the foods that been recommended to us do not build the proper hormones.
Right.
And so I really think it is the thing where you didn't go through menopause is if you're eating eggs, you're eating saturated fat, you're eating animal based, you're avoiding all the things they're telling you you need. Oh, where's all your fiber? Where's all your fiber? You know, I do this feel a lot. Fiber is fine. It's not some magical thing. It just means that you're eating whole foods. People think, "Oh,
Right.
are you getting enough fiber?" I'm like, "There's no such thing as getting enough fiber. That just makes no sense." It, but I'm surprised that these people do nutrition research for a living. These PhDs, and they don't even understand nutrition. They think that fiber is this magical substance. They don't understand that, of course, the studies show that people who eat more fiber are healthier because they're eating more whole foods. And the more fiber you eat, the less processed foods you're eating. And of course, this is an associational thing that we see in the literature, but they don't know
Yeah.
the basics of nutrition. What is going on?
And it's astounding, isn't it? My husband is, well, he's a ER doctor, and he tells me like these stories sometimes over the years about, he's at work and he has his glass container with his like, beef and ferments in it, and he's guzzling back his raw milk. And you can see by looking at the guy how healthy he is. And still he'll have people, overweight and pale and not doing well, that are like, 10, 15 years his junior, saying, "Wow, there's a heart attack in a container." I mean, these are doctors and they are clueless, like absolutely clueless. And so, I think that if the people that are supposed to be, and we all know this. I mean, we all know this already, but if the people that are supposed to be in charge of health, or at least have a domain over health, don't even get it, then and unfortunately, a lot of people listen. A lot of people listen to people like that, and these guidelines and all this other stuff that brings you completely astray. So, it doesn't surprise me that people are asking you where your fiber is, and not understanding that you're eating a whole food diet, and that it's not something you have to focus on, this minutia of getting in the fiber. I could take some powdered fiber. I mean, that what does that do? It's missing all its nutrients.
Yeah. It's so true. I mean, yes, I accidentally get fiber. Yeah, I'm not
Yeah,
worried about it at all. Of course, like I'm just eating whole foods, so I'm accidentally getting soluble fiber, insoluble fiber. Like, who cares? Like, why does anyone focus on this? It's just shows me that these people don't understand nutrition, or
yeah,
people that are saying avoid the foods. But you just can open up a data table and look at what is the most bioavailable and complete protein. And there's the PDCAS system, the DIAS system, and it's all the animal foods at the top.
Yeah.
And then people are just saying avoid red meat. I'm like, well, this is just the most basic science. Like, I don't know, little argument on Instagram comments or Facebook comments with someone who's vegan, obviously. I'm just saying, look it up. He's like, oh, you're just saying this to get attention. I'm like, I'm telling you to just open up any internet and look up any study about bioavailable and complete protein, and it's absolute fact. And these people don't want to get it. And then the authorities, they're like, okay, well, these foods have the most bioavailable and complete protein. These are the foods we've been eating forever, but you should eat less of them because saturated
Yeah.
fat or something. I don't know what they.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's where people start getting when you get sucked into these holes. I'm sure you hear from people all the time, like, oh, I don't know what to do. I don't know. Like, you say to do this, she says to do that. And so much of that energy could just be devoted to just eating whole foods, getting rid of the processed foods, accessing local food to you as much as you can, and putting your attention on that, and then using the rest of your time to go outside and play a game in the sun. Like, honestly, it so much could be achieved just by doing that.
It's so true. I mean, I talked to you about writing my own book, and it'd be something around Sapien, and it would be just that. But then sometimes I think, what's the point of me writing this book when it's so obvious? But maybe it's needed. I don't know.
I
What do
I
you?
don't know. I mean, it is obvious, but it, people, I think people think it's too obvious. That there has to be some strife and struggle, and there has to be, and I also, to be frank, I think, having been a nutritionist that worked with people one-on-one, I think people use the excuse of not knowing what to do and this and that, and should I do this, as a way to just not do the fundamental things that they need to do.
Mm.
It's a way of delaying and not having to actually get serious with yourself and take on that responsibility. So they're looking to other people. Well, should I do this? Should I do that? And instead, just saying, okay, that's enough of that. I am going to take on the responsibility of doing this for myself. I'm going to stop eating processed foods. I'm going to stop buying them. Here's how we're going to eat and actually doing it. And I think that this collection of information is a way to not have to do anything. We think we're doing something because we're filling up our brain with all this information, but we're not actioning it. I see that a lot too. I
Mm.
have a lot of people that used to, on Instagram, write to me and be like, "Well, how do I start? Well, how do I start?" And I think that as soon as I hear that, I think, that's sort of just, you know how to start. We really all know how to start. So yeah, maybe that book is needed, Brian, because you can just lay it out. Here's how to start.
Well, yeah, it's kind of just framing it too. I think
Yeah,
people know some of this, but I think maybe part of just having someone lay it out for them into a cohesive framework is
yeah,
how they start, because they're like, oh, I get it now. They're sapient. It's just human. It's what Tara has been talking about. I'm just trying to call it sapient because people just need a name for things. That's part of
yeah.
society too, is they need to see something on Instagram like, oh, that's a thing. See, it has a name. It's like Maha. Ah, that's a thing. So then people can rally around Maha just because it's a name. Like, I don't care about the political part. I just love that at least people can know what it's called so that we can do it together. That's actually how we signed with the production company. We had two companies fighting over us because Maha existed. So now all these random
Oh.
industry people, you're like, oh, it's a thing now. Oh, we could make some money off this. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's
Not
exciting.
our people are great. Our people are great. Yeah, no, it's exciting, and I think it'll help us. And we're going to pitch to Netflix very soon with this production company and doing all the things to get to these big platforms. But that is part of why I think Netflix is going to take it and buy it is
Mm,
because, oh, yeah, this is a thing now because it just needs a name. So,
right.
yes, living like a human needs a name now because we've gone so
Mhm.
far from it that people just need to get someone to tell them. And so you
Yeah.
say, how do I start? Right. And I've worked with people too. I just started working with another guy just that hangs around Sapien. And he kind of knew what to do, but just would never do it. But it's just a shift. It's a thing that you need to just tell yourself, this is my new identity, or this is what I'm doing now. This is
Yeah.
right. It's not, you don't need to learn a million rules because there's no rules to just eating whole foods. I mean, that's the whole thing. You just eat whole foods. It's not
Yeah.
complicated, but people need to have that identity change where they're just like, I am doing this now. And heretofore, I will make these choices as this person who now is sapient. Is that, yeah? Have you found that where it's just an identity that needs to change?
Yeah, absolutely true. It's a choice. Like it's a choice that you make and then you reinforce that choice by your actions every day. And like I think if you think, oh, I have to do this for the rest of my life, it seems it feels like it's beyond your capability when you're in, a pattern and a routine that's not serving you. And it's just like any other habit building, you just say, okay, I am going to commit to this for like 30 days. Like, don't worry about like how much you eat and keep trying to restrain yourself. Like, eat the foods, enjoy the foods, and just make the commitment to remove processed foods from your diet and that you're going to get outside once a day or twice a day or whatever. I mean, it can be such simple steps and you can just build on it as you go. It doesn't have to be like, but you're right. Like to associate yourself with a person that nourishes their body. Like, I am a person that nourishes my body. I'm a person that honors my body is such a more positive way than being like, I can't eat the Doritos anymore. I can't eat, whatever your foods are, that are pleasurable but not serving you is is how we change anything in our lives is we find in it what it is that is going to bring to our lives or help us to expand into, and then we do that thing and we do that out of that place of having made that really positive choice for ourselves, giving ourselves that gift. And it doesn't mean there's not moments of like struggle or whatever, everybody has that, but I mean, we're capable of struggling. We're capable of moving through things. And when we do that, like the confidence and the that you build in yourself, like the trust you build in yourself, these things we can't get when we're always betraying ourselves by not caring for ourselves properly. That's like of all the things we do to ourselves, those that betrayal of not actually caring for this vessel that moves us through this life, which is so fleeting. I mean, this life is so quick, and that we are given these like vessels that are just absolutely mind-blowingly miraculous. And our part of the bargain is to take care of them so that we can experience life how we're meant to experience and its fullness with clear minds and clear bodies and sound emotions. Like, that's the deal. And so, we're grown-ups. We need to be responsible for ourselves. And in so doing that, the rewards are great, they're profound. And that's what it's all about. That's why we're here.
It is. It is. And I've been working on this new kind of analogy or point that it's what you're talking about. Your bodies are incredible. Our bodies are just made to work. And I'm going with a car analogy. My body now works like a brand new car. Like the first year you own a car, it just works, right? You're not always at the shop. You're not
Right.
breaking down. You just start it up. It works every time. It runs amazing. That's how my body is now. That's how your body is now. You are in your mid 50s, supposedly through this whole menopause thing. No, your body just works. It just works. And it's didn't just work before, for me at least. And I know you've had some, different struggles in your life. Back when I was 30, I was following the food pyramid. Oh, the knee pain, acid reflux. Oh, I got allergies. All my, overuse injuries. I'm so inflamed. All this stuff. People get used to their body just not working. It's like having the beat up car that's 20 years old. That's, I got to go get the oil again. Oh, this thing's leaking. That's how everyone lives. And people don't realize you can have the brand new car body. That's what people's birthright as humans should be. And I've talked to people all over the world that still have that. I visited these people in Africa, the Hadza. They live long and drop dead. Probably another Marxist quote. And
Yeah.
he's doing it. He's out there playing
Yeah.
ultimate frisbee. He's 72. He's not complaining about, I can't get out of bed and blah, 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 creaky. Blah, blah. No, people, the guy, the Frederick, the Sami reindeer herder, his grandpa or dad was 95 and just went on a all day snow trekking thing to see his friend and 30 kilometers, whatever it was, and came back and then died 2 weeks later. That is how a body should work.
Yes.
Yay or nay?
Yes. Yes. I organize this big bulk organic fruit pickup group that I started like 20 years ago or something. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But I get to meet with a lot of people that come here to pick up fruit. And I was just talking to a guy a week or so ago, and he was telling me about his wife, who's a nurse at a palliative care, like an old folks home. And he said to me, there's so many people there that are they spend the last 10, 15 years of their life just fading, fading. Their brains are going, their bodies are going, they're in bed, and he said, everyone says that we're like, living longer, but what's really happening is we're dying longer. And, and I said, we were talking about that, and he was just saying that it's just one of the saddest things that his wife has to deal with are these seeing these people whose families come to see them, they barely recognize them. They've been since their 70s decrepit. I mean, I've seen it in my own family, and I agree with you. That's not how I want to go out. Like, I'll go and then I want to just be done. I don't want to go through this huge period of losing my mind and losing my body and frailty and breaking hips. And that is a huge motivator for me. I mean, in my 20s, Brian, it was all about being hot. I wanted to be hot. Like, I wanted to wear do the things, wear the clothes, all that sort of thing. And what happens as you age is like aesthetics are fine and great. I mean, no one wants to look bad, you still want to look good. And but you start like the things that become important, like for me, I have a 2.5-year-old granddaughter, and she just goes, and I want to play with her. I want to be able to run next to her. I want to be able to scoop her up from the ground and lift her up over my head. And like these things are really important to me. I don't want to break my hip because I bent down to pick up a Lego. Like I think that the things that become important are that you realize the whole quality of your life, of your experience here, is dependent on how you are able to move and feel in these bodies of ours. They're a profound gift, and they're the great limiter. I mean, if you do not take care of your body, you can't think the way you're supposed to think, feel the way, or interact with the world in the way we're designed to interact with the world. And I mean, what is a bigger motivator than that? Because if you just think, well, you're still young and you can get by with abusing yourself. I don't know what happens when you're in your 50s or 60s and you decide then. I mean, the body is resilient and can come back, but imagine how much better things can be if, like, right now, today, you start making these decisions around food and the way that you're going to move and everything. Maybe then you're 55 and go through menopause and you don't even notice it. Maybe you're like your age in your 40s and your testosterone is like through the roof and you're feeling great and you're moving and, accomplishing. all the things you're able to accomplish because you do have that energy to put forward in life. I think that those things are ultimately the most important things. And yeah, looking good's great too, but those things are the fundamental,
Mhm.
fundamentally at the core of our lives.
It's so true, and it really is the foundation is nutrition.